Hello, humanity. My name is Ukulele, and today I wanted to share a short story that I wrote called Piano Typewriter. Her hair was dripping down her back like black ink. Her hands flew across the typewriter, slamming down the raised keys ferociously, as if it were a piano playing Beethoven. But on the sheet of paper, nothing. No words. Only the delicate splashes of iron-red ink, soaked into the thirsty pale sheet. The keys too were coated in pungent layers of it, some long past dried and beginning to flake with each viper-like strike, showing her madness. She said nothing, even with her invisible entourage. One whispered close to her ear, and pulled away on a giggle. She ignored that. Mice in a maze can't give chase. One just brooded over her with an intimidating smolder that could freeze live cold. And when she completed her number, this one snapped like a mountain, and always told her again, 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 again. It had no emotion. The ding of the tainted machine rang out every so often, making her sway with the effort to slide it back. Hunger had left her a long time ago, so she continued her work. These two were the only remaining after her long isolation. Papers littered the floor, some having the letters worn through the paper from being run through so many times. All had precious iron flecks on them. She could go panning for iron later in the dead river of wood, if she had time, she thought to her small friend. Her giant shadow only grew and said again, 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 again. She pulled the paper free from the machine to inspect the strange symbols she never learned before they threw her in here. Her hand used to only be able to touch 3 keys at once, but now she rested her hand across half the keyboard horizontally. Everything had slowly shrunk down to her size, except her clothes, which were now just dull gray tatters, like the crumbling cement walls around her. When they put her in here, her mommy and daddy told her she would be safe from the bad men she had seen on the TV. She couldn't remember anything she saw on TV, except a voice saying she had to eat a chocolate bar to be herself when she was hungry, as it showed a guy eating it, then turning into a sweet blonde girl. She was afraid, when she was first in here, that she would wake up to be some big gorilla man who was mean, and mommy and daddy would be upset with her for being naughty. She was waiting for mommy and daddy to come get her still. They said that they would. There used to be a whole mountain of food and water up against the wall opposite the steel door. But she was now out of food. She tried eating paper at first, but the only thing to help her swallow it was the blood and sweat on it. A while back, she had woken up in a warm little puddle of blood, and she was scared her body had decided to die. She remembered prayers and begging her mommy to come save her. The last time she saw her mommy was as she shut the door, and behind was a bright flash which hurt her eyes and made her unable to see anything but white until it wore off. A while after the pain left her, though, she found it went away, and she lived still. She had to sacrifice some of her precious letters to her mommy and daddy to put down on the mattress after it happened. Now her stomach revolted, and she crumpled with its impatient gnawing. For a long time she never opened the door, because Daddy told her not to. But the first time she tried to, she couldn't because it was too heavy. Now she had to. She needed to ask Mommy why they hadn't come to get her yet. She had cried lots and lots of times about it, but now she just wanted to find her and some yummy pudding. She walked over to the door, the bag that had held potatoes taped over her torso, and another around her hips with some strong silver tape. It rustled as she walked, careful not to step on any of her piles of letters. There never came any sound from outside this room, but she was used to the silence. She stopped in front of the steel door, locking her in, and shooed her small shadow away from the door handle. Her big shadow was just as curious as they were to see what was out there, but he complained about her stopping typing anyway. She took a breath and took the handle in her grip. She pulled backwards, leaning back as far as she could from it, but it didn't budge. Then she righted herself and pressed herself tightly against the door. She heard a click from the inside the door frame, but as she kept pushing, no other sound was heard. Then she remembered the light from outside being slowly cut off as the door slid and locked in place. She turned her body, putting it up against the wall beside the door, then leaning into it. She dropped her head in focus and slipped on a loose letter as the door rolled a portion of the way open. A hot breeze rushed down the stairs, just beyond the door, like someone breathing deliberately into her face, and she drew away surprised. A peek outside the door didn't reveal anything but cement stairs that led down into this underground room. She slid out cautiously from the gap in the thick door, her bare feet padding on the cold, solid ground. 2 charcoal drawings were on the outside of the door of 2 people, and while she was curious who had drawn them, she was much more curious at present to see what the world looked like at the top of those stairs. She remembered bright green grass, other little girls with their mommies walking by them as they rode tricycles and played with their friends. She wasn't old enough to go out and play yet when her mommy put her in her room. She remembered the giant houses in pastel colors lining the neatly landscaped road. She climbed faster and slipped, catching herself with her hands, which especially stung her fingertips. She was almost to the top, on all fours. She could stretch up and peek over the edge to see what she could see. She stretched her neck and peered over the top step and saw nothing but brown dust and dirt for a while. Then some smashed, burnt black houses. She wasn't sure what to think of these houses so far away. Her house was gone. She climbed slowly out of the hole and stood up straight. She looked to her left and right and saw a repeat of what was in front of her. She turned around and saw more of the same, but the closest house wasn't as far as the other ways. She started to walk to it and saw someone with their head dropped to look at the ground wearing a hood. This was her beginning for discovering what lay beyond the bunker. Never again could she return home to her ignorance. That song had ended forevermore. Thank you for joining me today. If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe. I'll see you all again soon.